So in my other class, students said, boy, it'd be helpful to have your long-winded text narrated. So that's what this is all about. And if it's helpful, great. And if it's not, don't listen to it and just do the reading. That's fine. Um, so in this week's starter and the discussion and the assignment are related to SAMR, which you'll know way more about by the end of the week. But um, so I'll just start reading. I loved your discussions in week one and throughout the rest of the week, but especially the week one conversations about that picture of the old guy and the jackhammer. A lot of you, the question that pervaded was some kind of permutation of like, how do you know when to use a jackhammer and how to use when to use a paddle? And taken to the context of technology, it's translated to how do I know when to use a particular technology tool in my instructional designs, or some of you talked about how your school has gone all in on whatever technology, and you feel like it's fine, but it doesn't really fit what you need to have happen technology wise. And so it's kind of a question of like, how do I know if this should or will work for me? And so that's what this work is all about. Maria Montessori was a visionary educator. She said that noble ideas and great sentiments have always existed and have always been transmitted, and ... And she would probably say, and will always continue to exist and be transmitted. And she did this way back when, about 100 years ago. She was a really well-regarded influencer. She was one of the first to really kind of recognize Instagram's potential to really shape education. And so she often would tag her Instagram with good and bad education exists with and without technology. So she's really visionary in that regard. And just I have a little note there at the end of this that you might want to read. But anyway, what she was saying with this quote and with her hashtags, I guess, is essentially like, so we don't need technology, but if it makes sense, we use it, right? Um, and so, like, the question again is, how do we know? Well, a framework that might help us think about how a tech tool being considered for use is likely to impact the original instructional design is what we're going to learn about this week. And if it makes sense to use the tool, then use it. And if it doesn't, then don't. And if technology tools can help us expand the breadth and the positive effect of the work that we're using it for, great, that's next level. And those levels are I hate to use the word level, but it's helpful to think about SAMR. And so what is it? It's not a system, it's not a template, it's not a step-by-step protocol. It's just a way to think about how, if you use a technology tool, how it could impact student learning for whatever it is you're going to apply it to. And so in the framework, the letters S, A, M, and R refer to different degrees to which technology tools can impact the original learning tasks, the ones that you're starting with. And the letters stand for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And broadly speaking, the impact of bringing technology to the original learning activity or learning task or learning target increases as we go from substitution to redefinition. Substitution is the simplest impact, such as when students use Google Maps to mark and label key elements like major cities and rivers, as opposed to just using writing and drawing to mark up a photocopied map. In this week, you'll see plenty of examples of substitution of all the different levels. And that's going to be in the content that's linked at the bottom of this and linked in the module and linked also to the discussion. But just explore that as you will, as much as you need to kind of feel like you got a grasp on what you want to get a grasp on. Just a couple cautions about this, though. And so the framework can be super helpful, but it's really important that we don't get hung up on crisp, bright lines between the levels. The purpose is not to classify the tools by which exact category are they absolutely and perfectly in. the purpose is to help you just be deliberate about how technology can impact instructional designs. And so if you focus too much on like, which level is this tool in, that's kind of missing the point. It's also true that the tool itself, a single tech tool, can be used at different levels of the framework depending on how it's being used. So again, don't focus on finding the right answer. Hint, hint, it's not there. There is no right answer. Focus on what students are likely to learn and with compared to without the technology tools. And if it makes sense, given all the variables that you got to consider as an instructional designer, use it. And if it doesn't, don't. So that's kind of the broad framework, overall kind of philosophy for the starter. The resources that you're going to find here are pretty, I find, pretty solid. I've spent years kind of trying to find resources that are multiple means of representation and that are easy to explore. And these are I would say the 4 greatest hits that I've found. But what you're going to do for the starter is spend some time getting into the content. And again, it's below or in the module. And then answer the following questions. So what do you find helpful about the model? What's a question, concern, wondering, etc. about the model that you have? And then this is kind of the meat of the work is start with something that either you're already about to do or that you're doing or considering doing, or something that just is kind of the base level. So start with a learning task in your area. And for that learning task, submit the following. The learning task that the original learning task itself that you're going to supplement using the technology. So for example, students will diagram how photosynthesis and cellular respiration influence the flow of matter and energy. So that's the original. And then modify that original task, modify that for each level of SAMR. So being specific about which tech tool you would use for each level. It doesn't have to be the same tech tool for all 4 levels. It could be. It's probably, when I do this, I find it easier to use different technology tools for the different levels. But that is going to be your choice. So you're going to modify the original task, which is this, for each level of SAMR. So you'll have the original task, and then you'll have a substitution adaptation, let me get back to it. So you'll take this task, students will diagram how far is it, You'll have a substitution level modification. You'll have an augmentation level modification. You'll have a modification level modification, and you have a redefinition level modification. If this is all feeling like Greek to you, it won't after you review the resources, I hope. Just a couple of notes here about asterisks and things that are throughout this description. I hope this is helpful, and if it's not, well, that's about 10 minutes you're not getting back. Sorry.